Good morning and welcome to a special Angus Council meeting. First of all, our apologies for the late start. This was due to YouTube connection problems, but I'd like to welcome members to this meeting of Angus Council and remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded now. Could I remind that all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking, and please raise your electronic hand should you wish to speak. Please do not speak during items unless I invite you to speak. For members present, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Moving on to number 1, apologies for absence, and Sarah will intimate the apologies.
Yes, Provost, we have apologies from Councillors Cheap, McLaren, Meehan and Shepherd. Sorry, and Stewart as well.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest and statements of transparency. Do anyone have any of these? No, that's fine. Thank you. I see Councillor Whiteside's hands up. Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Provost. I just think it's appropriate, before we go any further with this meeting, to make a statement in light of the events of the last few days. I'd just like to say that my thoughts and all of our thoughts are with those that were affected by Storm Babet, and that's both in Brechin and surrounding areas and across Angus. The situation was totally unprecedented. I'm very grateful to all the people that were involved in the action over the weekend to assist people, the council staff, all our resilience partners, community volunteers. The response was absolutely unprecedented, and we're really grateful to everyone who was involved. And we know it's not been easy, and I'd also like to mention the sad loss of one of our council colleagues, which some council staff are dealing with at the same time as well. I'd like to stress that the Council are absolutely committed to the recovery process. Councils and government have contingency funds in place for situations like this, and support has been pledged by the Scottish Government directly from our First Minister, Humza Yousaf. But the Council do have contingency funds in place as well, and we are committed to the recovery, and I'd just like to reassure everyone who's been affected that we'll do our utmost. We're prepared to commit at this stage up to £10 million, but we are expecting significant support from the Scottish Government, and I'd just like everybody to know how seriously we're taking the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Moving on to number 3, Arbroath, a place for everyone, project update and contract award, and Mr Graham Daly is here to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost, and good morning, everyone. This report provides an update on the Arbroath A Place for Everyone project and recommends that it's agreed to proceed to the construction phase and completion of the project. The project's inception can be traced back to the feedback and insights of local residents. It emerged from a series of consultations with the communities of Arbroath that began in 2015, where residents repeatedly highlighted that the dual carriageway through the town was creating a divide between the town centre, the bus and train stations, as well as key tourism destinations in the coast. It was also expressed that the road was a physical deterrent to pedestrians and cyclists, and that this physical barrier impacted the high street, reducing accessibility as well as the overall pride in place. In response, we sought financial support for a transformational project in Arbroath, and in July 2019, the Scottish Government announced that funding under the Sustrans Places for Everyone programme had been awarded to Angus Council. The Arbroath project is among the most ambitious projects being funded by the Places for Everyone programme, with Arbroath the first of Scotland's towns to receive the highest level of funding available through the scheme. Once completed, the scheme will offer an exceptional walk-in, wheeling and cycling route accessible to all, connecting key destinations throughout Arbroath and significantly enhancing accessibility. But members, it's crucial to emphasise that first and foremost, this is a regeneration project with the goal of delivering long-term economic and place-based benefits for Arbroath and the broader area. The transformative project sits firmly within Angus Council priorities around addressing climate change, addressing the nature crisis, promoting health and well-being, supporting the tourism centre and town centre and wider regeneration within the town. The project is designed to create a more appealing and better connected town, which will boost the local economy through increased footfall in shopping areas and attractions benefiting both our residents and visitors. Furthermore, the construction phase of this project will offer immediate benefits to our local economy with targets for employing local labour and an estimated spend of approximately £2 million on local suppliers and subcontractors. The timing of this report is challenging, given the recent horrific flooding we have experienced in Angus and its profound impact on our communities. Our focus and attention is supporting the recovery from the immediate impacts of Storm Babette. I would highlight that this project does sit firmly within Angus Council priorities around addressing climate change and addressing the nature crisis. It would deliver a greener environment that encourages more sustainable transport and is aligned with our agreed sustainable energy and climate action plan. The financial implications section of the report describes how the overall project cost was estimated at £13.2 million, approximately £9.3 million of which was awarded to Angus Council by Sustrans in 2019. However, an increase in costs due to COVID-19 delays, high inflation and a rise in construction costs has seen the project cost increase. As detailed in the report, to combat these rising costs, the project team have been able to deliver approximately £1.4 million of cost savings through value engineering. This has meant changes to specifications without compromising the design or quality of the project. This has left an increase of £1.36 million in project costs remaining. The report sets out how this funding shortfall will be fully covered by additional funding that has been secured from Sustrans and by up to £150,000 from the UK Share Prosperity Fund. Thanks to these sources of additional funding, the project can be progressed within the previously approved Angus Council share of costs and budget. If agreed today, construction on the project is targeted to start in January 2024 with an estimated 19 months construction programme and completion July 2025. It is recommended that we proceed to the construction phase on the condition that preliminary site investigations into the location of utility services are concluded and it is confirmed that the project remains on budget. The project team will liaise with utility providers and will seek to agree practical and real solutions where required, such as additional cable protection. Therefore, we consider the risk to be relatively low. The project's journey has spanned several years, and our progress thus far is the result of collective efforts and input from our communities, elected members, officers and funding partners. It is important to acknowledge that securing over £10 million in external funding for a transformational place-based regeneration project of this scope in Arbroath is a remarkable achievement, and the opportunity is very unlikely to arise again in the foreseeable future. To conclude, I would just advise that I'm joined by Alison Smith and Jill Patterson, who are best placed to advise further on the wider place and economic benefits of the project. Ian Lorimer, who can provide more clarity on the financial implications, and our senior engineers and project manager, Craig Hudson and Graeme McLean, who can assist with any queries you may have on the technical detail of the project. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive report. So we have any questions at all? Does anyone want to make any... Oh, sorry, there are two questions. I saw Councillor Heather Doran. Heather, when you come forward, can you let us know which officer you're directing that to, and the same with with Serena. Okay, I'll start with Councillor Doran.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure who would be answering this one. It might be Ms Patterson, but or it might be a combination. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the public engagement that's been done around the final designs for the project. I'm very familiar with seeing the planning applications when we are presented with anything that's been put forward in support of it and anything against it. And I understand this is different and has gone through a different process. But from the information provided, what I can see is that there were only 111 responses to the final design from residents in Arbroath. Please correct me if I'm wrong there, but that seems quite low as a percentage of the population of Arbroath that have fed back on those final designs. So I wanted to know if my understanding of that is correct, and if there would be any more engagement after this point, or if that would be then stopped and we would just then move forward as we make a decision today. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill, are you answering this one?
I'm actually going to defer to my colleague Craig Hudson, who has been dealing with the engagement on the final design.
Absolutely. Over to you, Craig.
Thank you, Chair. Just to answer the point, in Appendix 1, there's an outline of all the engagement activities that took place. And yes, the number of online consultation responses were quite low, but we did do extensive engagement through public exercises, visiting various places in Arbroath, on-street interception surveys, etc., where residents, the public were given an opportunity to have their say on the design, both in terms of elements of the design, etc. There was also engagement with certain groups, disability forums, etc. They were directly feeding into the design as well.
Can I just clarify, if I may, on that point? Were those any of those in-person engagement activities done after the final designs have been completed, or were these all done as part of the building of those final designs? Just to clarify that. Thanks. It was
in effect, it was the building of the design. The design was effectively in place, but it was the ideal opportunity to engage with the public to say, here's the design, this is what we're looking to do, this is the physical model. Please feel free to feed into that in terms of what you would really like to see changed, etc., etc., any additional elements that you would like to be included.
Right, moving on to second question, Councillor Cowdy.
Thanks very much. Yeah, this is a question for Mr. Daly. If you don't mind, could you go into a bit more detail on the environmental benefits of the scheme? Because I've been asked that question a few times. It would be great to have some more detail on that.
Certainly. As I said, it does align priorities in terms of addressing climate change and the Sustainable Energy Climate Action Plan. To be more specific in terms of how we feel that will be delivered, there is the element around the sustainable transport. Now, this is encouraging more active modes of transport in terms of cycling, wheeling, walking. And what I would stress as well is that what we feel we're doing is making a bold decision in terms of long-term future, in terms of encouraging people to embrace more active modes of transport. There's also the element of reconnecting the town with the bus and train stations and trying to encourage, again, more active and more use of public transport. There's also the fact I mentioned in the introduction that a greener environment. There is less road surface, less asphalt and more green areas. The designs, if you've had the opportunity to look at, you will see that there's far more planting and green areas that have been introduced that will have biodiversity and nature benefits as well, of course, as just drainage benefits. And I think these combined, we feel that it is a long-term and bold decision, hopefully, to show our commitment to sustainable transport and addressing the nature crisis.
Thanks very much for that. Next one is Councillor Speed.
Thanks. I think this is for Mr. Daly. I've had lots of opportunity throughout the last 6-7 years to kind of ask questions on behalf of constituents and scrutinise in terms of the placemaking and the kind of technical details. However, what I would just like is some detail around, should this be agreed today, what the communication strategy would be, because I think that needs to be really robust going forward, particularly if construction was to start in early January. For example, within the report it clearly explains that there was still some kind of groundworks and investigations that started this week. Unfortunately, it did kind of coincide with some of the diversions, but I just want assurances that our communication strategy is going to be really robust, because there will be some disruption and people need to be able to, perhaps be able to change their routes and journeys throughout that time.
Yes, I would just agree with you, Councillor Speed. We appreciate that the communications will be key, and it's something we have already liaised with our own communications team in terms of how we best set up a communication plan around about how the phasing and how the project will look in the final designs, but on a more pragmatic view in terms of what the immediate impacts in terms of any traffic management that we need to put in place. It is touched upon in the report about our method in terms of how we will phase this and how we will take advantage of the fact there is the dual carriageway just now to minimise disruption. But I think the key thing to say, Councillor, is just to really acknowledge your point and just say that we will endeavour to communicate the best we can regarding the project.
Thank you. And Councillor Scott?
Sorry, Provost.
Oh.
Could I just come back for a little follow-up, if that's okay?
Yes, I think this is a really important one, so you can have a follow-up. Thank you.
It was just a little bit of assurance as well that it won't just be all online communication, that there will at times information, that there will be methods that are not just online, so that people that don't have access can be kept updated as well.
Yeah, Councillor Speed, I'll take that on as an action, as a commitment to make sure that we do address that particular issue, and we'll work with our teams, our communities team, to make sure that there is that in-person engagement as well.
Councillor Scott.
Hiya, I'm not sure who this will be for, maybe Mr. Lorimer. I know it's saying that the projected cost is fixed, but is there likely to be variations on that? I sound funny.
Through you, Provost, thank you. Councillor Scott, you sound okay at this end. Yeah, the price is effectively a fixed price. The only things that would vary away from that are mentioned in the risk section of the report. And as Mr. Daly mentioned, there's site investigations in terms of utilities to be undertaken, but the project won't be committed until those are complete, and we've confirmed that is affordable. On a project of this scale, I think we've nailed down the cost pretty well, save for a few areas of risk which you would have with any project. We have also built into the project costs a level of contingency, which will give us a bit of protection if there are any issues that come forward which are unexpected. So I think we're well covered on that. part of the benefit of doing using the SCAPE framework is to get a fully market-tested price. So that gives us some confidence that it can be delivered within the budget. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ross-Gregg.
Thank you, Provost. I think my question is for Mr. Daly as well. You mentioned when you were introducing the report that if this was to be approved, it would benefit not only Arbroath but the wider area. So could I ask specifically how, if this was approved, this would specifically benefit the people in Forfar and also the rest of my ward?
I might ask my colleagues if they would like to contribute to this, but I think by attracting more people to Arbroath, we would hope we are boosting the economy and people staying within Angus and also visiting our other many attractions within Angus. If there'll be an important connection with the existing NC1 cycle route, I think most of you will be aware that there's currently near completion is the Broughty Ferry to Moneyfeith, places for everyone cycle route. And we are just finished doing some improvements to the NC1 near Carnoustie. And I think joining this up, we'll have one of the best cycle routes, arguably, in the country, all the way to Arbroath. And we would hope that that would bring people to the area, and as I said, then embrace going to other parts of from Angus. Now, rather than trying to answer that further, I think I would defer to my colleagues I mentioned at the beginning, Jill Patterson and Alison Smith, who I feel are better placed to answer that further.
And with that in mind, I see Alison Smith had her hand up first, and then we'll come to you, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, so in terms of tourism and our tourism frameworks that we work to both within Angus and across the T-Cities area, connectivity, active travel and connecting our tourism assets consistently come through as one of the priorities for the area. So that being able to get to two different areas, being able to get to different tourism assets, etc., is absolutely a priority for us. So we see this project very much as that catalyst for change in terms of encouraging. Arbroath certainly is one of our hotspots for tourism after Glamis Castle. It's always been Arbroath Harbour that is our most popular tourism destination, and now we're seeing that Hospital Field is actually exceeding that in terms of their visitor numbers. So we're very conscious that people are coming in. But the tourism profile in Angus is also that people come here to do a range of things within a day. We have a lot of day visitors. We have a lot of people who come to visit family and friends. And being able to get to other areas is very important. So having this as a catalyst for that change and being able to connect to other projects is absolutely vital. And we see that as the huge potential in terms of tourism. The other area is in terms of where we also always have the issues is around connectivity in terms of employment, accessing employment, accessing education and training, etc. So all of I'm not sure if I'm muted. I had a message to say I'd been muted. Is that opportunity to start really connecting up the whole of Angus and making sure that we're linking in to the major employment opportunities and making sure we're linking into education and training. I don't know if Jill wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on the details around this project as a demonstrator for how Angus can deliver on a significant regeneration project that's effectively can be looked at in different towns. This one happens to be focused in and around active travel. There's a significant funding now placed, external funding, which we require to bid in a competitive process for, but real opportunities to focus around different visions for different towns and show how Angus can actually deliver on these. So, and as I say, this particular circumstance is focused around active travel. It may be a different vision and a different project for a different town, and you'll be aware that, you know, officers are working on the detail around what those visions are, how those projects come together, and how we can start make sure that we have projects ready for these significant amounts of funding that come forward. Particularly at the moment, that external funding centres around climate change and biodiversity in line with national priorities, but there are other significant funds that are based around heritage and culture. So it's working up in conjunction with communities what those projects look like, and we're in the process of developing that and taking that further as part of the police work that's underway.
There's no microphones. Can't hear.
Point of order. We can't hear you online in the chamber.
So it's coming up that County Hall has been muted on Teams. So if someone's able to just unmute County Hall on Teams, I think that's probably the best.
Can everyone hear the chamber now?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, thank you. Right, so we'll now move back over to Councillor Whiteside. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Once again, I welcome this report and confirm my continuing support for the project, which has been developed over several years following a successful competitive process under the previous council administration. The financial commitment was first agreed in 2020 and the Angus Council contribution included in our capital plan and approved by a majority of councillors across the chamber in every subsequent budget. Today we're being asked to accept the award of additional funding from Sustrans, bringing their total contribution up to 10.49 million, a huge investment in Angus and a vote of confidence in the project. It's worth highlighting that the costs to Angus Council remain within our existing approved budget. I do acknowledge that support isn't unanimous, neither across members nor among the residents of Arbroath, and I don't dismiss their concerns lightly. The decision-making process, however, has been robust and democratic. As detailed in the papers, multiple consultation events have taken place and residents have had many chances to feed in their opinions, while elected members have voted several times in successive years for the project to be approved. In response to questions around value for money, of course we have a responsibility to achieve best value for Angus residents. In the current financial climate, this means doing our utmost to leverage in external funding whenever possible in order to deliver transformational, ambitious and exciting plans, whilst achieving a balanced budget, which of course we're obliged to do. As I've already pointed out, proceeding with this project remains within our approved budget and the recommendations note that the project only progresses if it remains within budget. I also think we have to be careful that our judgment isn't clouded by events across Angus over recent days. As I've already articulated, Angus Council members across the Chamber and the Scottish Government are right behind the people of Brechin, the surrounding areas and those across Angus who've suffered the devastating effects of the storm. We shouldn't remove support from this Arbroath project, which has been years in the planning, as a knee-jerk response. We can and must support both. In fact, the flooding illustrates in stark terms the climate emergency we are facing. Individuals, councils, businesses and government must work harder and faster on environmental projects to help our progress to net zero. Going forward, I'm also happy to commit to a review of future capital spend, something that will of course take place during the forthcoming budget process. We must take care to acknowledge the needs of all areas in Angus and plan accordingly. And I urge you to support the officer's recommendations and approve the project. Thank you.
Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much, Provost. I presume that we are now on to comments, and I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Whiteside had said. And I remember sitting in your chair some years back, us going through this particular project, and it's taken quite a few years to get to where we are now. But I also remember as a young boy going to Arbroath Sunday school picnics, and it was a place to go to. It was a place to go to in Angus. And I also used to take my children there when I was stationed in Dundee for a day out to the seaside, and it was really enjoyable. So let's get behind this project. Let's take advantage of this this grant of money, and let's get the project on. And I think it will benefit not just Arbroath, but the rest of the people in Angus. So I support the project.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Councillor Ross-Craig.
Thank you, Provost. I still have serious concerns over this, mostly because there's so many people in Arbroath who've come out saying that they wouldn't like it, despite there being various different opportunities for people to have their say. Even in the report, there was a small percentage, as Councillor Dorner pointed out, were actually in favour or part of the consultation for it. Arbroath's got a population of over 20,000. As per the report, there was, 1,200 people had replied to responses. The ongoing cost of it, I think the council government are well known for not being able to bring anything in on budget, so it's about that. And also, as Councillor Duff had been previously quoted in the papers as newspapers as saying, the huge and necessary Monifeith High School replacement left no room for nice-to-haves like the Arbroath scheme, and I think that's probably equally as apparent right now, especially as we've had the impact of the storms recently. There's also the cost of the ongoing maintenance. Yes, it'd be nice to have all these nice garden areas and green areas throughout the centre of Arbroath, but what's going to be the ongoing cost of the maintenance of that? We're already having to cut our budgets back to the absolute bone, and at some point the park services are going to feel the impact of that as well. So where's going to be the ongoing maintenance, and who's going to be paying for that? The First Minister announced that there's going to be a freeze in council tax next year. This was a surprise to COSLA as well as everyone in the local authorities, which is going to add even further pressure.
Sorry, Councillor Craig, that is irrelevant to this is irrelevant to what we're discussing at Council. Are you finished, or are you going to stop the politicking?
No, I'm talking about the cost of this and the ongoing cost of this.
Yes, but no, you're right.
Do we have the money to spare from our capital reserves to continue to go ahead and pay this, knowing what's coming in the next financial year?
That's a question now. Your chance to ask that question, Councillor Gregg. At that point in time, we're to comments. Thank you. We'll move now on to Councillor Fotheringham.
Thank you, Provost. Well, I take a different view, and I respect what Councillor Gregg has said, but I will refer to my colleagues, Councillor Whiteside and the other councillor, sorry, I can't remember, in support of this. And Mr Daly did mention the Broughty Ferry and Monifeith active travel scheme. That is not completed yet, but it is excellent. My car was in Broughty Ferry last week for a small item to be done to it, and I walked along there, and it's beautiful. There was elderly people, there was people in wheelchairs, there was people walking their dogs, pushchairs. You feel very safe. It's absolutely excellent, the job they've done. And I actually went along and spoke to the guys at Castle Green, where they're working at the moment. So I am fully in support of this, and it can only benefit Angus, I would say. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Fotheringham. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Provost. And just to clear up a couple items from Councillor Gregg, we are the contractors responsible for any overspend. So we're locked into this. And it's only in the recommendations that we've got specified in the report that the risk is. So in terms of any overspend, the Council, as I understand it, is not responsible for that. That's been a contractual thing that the Council has worked out going ahead. So the idea that these overspends are a council thing that happens all the time, I think is not fair to put onto this project. This project is one of those projects that, like councillor colleagues across the chamber, both administration and non-administration, has been going on a long time. Initially, when I saw it, I didn't think it was very good, frankly. I think there are times where we've gone up and down on this project, and sometimes I think the way that we as a local authority have spread the message about this has been wanting. However, and that's why the narrative in the papers is it's a multi-million pound psychopath. Well, it's not. As Alison pointed out and as Jill pointed out and the other officers have pointed out, this is the start of hopefully a snowball of projects that we can deliver across Angus. And the fact that we were able to get this money in through the previous administration, that we managed to get it in town, a non-city that has gotten this money, has really got to be commended, and I think the work that's gone into it is great. What really got me sucked into supporting the project was being on the member officer working group, where cross-party we discussed our fears and our hopes and dreams about this project, and ultimately this is everything that's been highlighted before, but ultimately for me a regeneration project and the start of making Arbroath a destination again, and the start of getting the high street back to where it needs to be again, and the start of something that makes Arbroath on the map, and in turn every other town across Angus and City, being from Beacon, can look towards, and hopefully we can get these sort of projects going in other areas too, to drive that economic benefit. I've got full faith in the officers on this one. I fully support the project, and I will encourage other elected members to do so as well.
Councillor Brace.
Yes, thanks, Provost. I'll not speak for too long, but just to echo the support of my colleagues for this project. I think that Angus should have nice things. I don't think Angus should be left to turn into a down-at-heel dump with nothing going on, as some members seem to be content with. So I fully back this project, and I would point out that we're doing much smaller scale but similar sort of active travel projects in every borough in Angus. We agreed that at committee not so long ago. This is the direction of travel, and it's not going to have any impact on our recovery efforts for Brechin and across Angus, because we have every confidence that the money will be found. We know where it is. Thanks.
Councillor Fairweather.
Thank you, Provost. Can I just start, when I went through to Perth and we were awarded that £9 million, I've already said that I must say, a bit gobsmacked. But one of the team from Sustrans came across to me and said that the bid that had been put in by Angus Council, our officers, was one of the best that they had seen. I think I've always said that I've supported this project. And in the last 4 years, I've had to listen to some nonsense regarding how dangerous it will be. Emergency services won't get through to the harbour, and will be killing people on the road. Really, it's all the same people still shouting all the same nonsense, because we wouldn't let something that's not safe and go ahead. As far as the funding is concerned, Sustrans, this is for one project and one project only. It's for Arbroath. It can't be directed someplace else. And if we lose that money, we not only lose it for Arbroath, but we lose it for every other town and village in Angus, because Sustrans will simply look at us and say, we're closed for business. This project, it will make Arbroath Centre cleaner and greener, and at long last, after over 40 years, we'll have a joined up town again. The transformation of the town will be amazing. What it will do for the economics of our High Street and the Westport and Kepty Street area will be phenomenal. I'm absolutely sure of that. So I will be supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Fairweather. Councillor Speed.
Thanks, Provost. It certainly has been the biggest and at times the most contentious and challenging project that I've been involved in. There has been lots of very valid concerns and questions raised throughout, and the fact that not everyone is supportive must be recognised and respected. However, in my experience, and has been demonstrated through various methods of our engagement, especially face-to-face, there is tremendous support from residents and businesses across the town. I'm regularly stopped and asked what's happening, and people are concerned that this project won't go ahead. We have taken people on a journey. There has been extensive engagement, has been highlighted, and at times it has been a bumpy ride. There are lessons to be learnt, such as the street trial and the confusion around its purpose. And the one thing that frustrates me is that perhaps we haven't managed to communicate and myth-bust enough. There has been misinformation spread, hence my ask around assurances that there will be a robust communication plan should the recommendations be agreed today. This is not all about a cycle lane, far from it. It is, as the name states, a place for everyone. The money from Sustrans cannot be used on anything else, and there is still ongoing misquoting of figures, which is just not helpful. As Mr Daly has highlighted, this is a project that was born out of public participation and responding to the ongoing complaints around the dual carriageway. These proposals are designed to create a safe, attractive environment and vibrant environment for future generations. I've continually sought assurances that pedestrian safety will be at the heart of all plans and that accessibility will be and greatly improved. Pedestrians from young to old, especially those with a disability or sensory impairment, are most at risk when travelling, with many solely relying on walking and wheeling to get around. Our current infrastructure, alongside poor street habits, for example, pavement parking and street clutter, often make a pedestrian travel a treacherous experience. I hope that this project is given the green light today to enable a safer, more sustainable passageway for all.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Councillor Cowdy.
Thanks. Well, it's not always that three Arbroath councillors agree with each other in a row, and we don't agree on everything. But in this case, I absolutely back what both David and Lois are saying about this scheme. I do believe it will be genuinely transformational, and I do believe it will have a very long-term positive effect on Arbroath and the surrounding areas. I would also concur that it's not always helpful to listen to the loudest voices, whether they're on Facebook or to your face, and maybe listen to everybody. I have also had lots of positive conversations with people who are in support of the scheme. I think in environmental terms it's important, not only also the message we're sending about how seriously we are taking what is obviously an environmental emergency. So overall, I've scrutinised this since I've become elected, and I'm very, very confident in this, and I would urge everyone to back the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Provost. Just a very quick comment. I think this is a great scheme because I don't think it just benefits people of Arbroath and dual carriageway that splits the time, but I think it benefits all of Angus because nice places attract people. People want to spend time. Scotland's tourism is worth £4 billion, and if we and Arbroath has been renowned for decades as a holiday destination. You bring people, they spend money, they go into the high streets. It's all regeneration. They will then head down to Forfar or up to Montrose. They will spend time there, and I think this has a huge positive impact that we will see across Angus, and hopefully can be complements to other projects across other boards in the area. So I'm fully supportive of it.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Gall. I totally agree with you with the tourism aspect. We now move on to Councillor Durno. Councillor Durno, thank you.
Thanks, brothers. I just want to say I'm really sorry to my constituents. I've tried to stop this project since day one, and I know know that you feel like I'm letting you down, but there's nothing else I can do about it. And I just hope the travel disruption is not going to be too much. And I'm really sorry. And I want me to stand noticed on this project because I just think it's going to be an absolute horrendous disaster. So thank you very much.
Councillor Scott, Jill Scott, thank you.
Hiya, thank you, Provost. I've listened carefully. Firstly, my judgment's not clouded by the Babbitt. Had we gone ahead without the storm, my comments would have been the same. So just to make that very clear. I'm in Arbroath a lot. I'm yet to speak to anybody that supports this. I'm in Arbroath 4 days a week. I know obviously you probably know your constituents better than me. I'm not trying to say that I do, but like I say, the only people that I've really spoken to that are supportive of it is probably Councillor Speed. And I've obviously heard the comments from David Fairweather. I spoke to cyclists from for a group of ladies cyclists that were through in Brecon. They'd done the trial. They just didn't see the point in it. They were saying, "Well, why would you want to spend time there when you've got the beautiful beach and obviously, as has been mentioned, all the cycle paths that you've got." My constituents, every single time that this has been in the press, I've had lots of questions about it. I've had lots of comments about it. I've tried to explain. Now, maybe that's a failure in communication because I hear what you're all saying, that this is going to benefit the whole of Angus. However, like I say, maybe that's been a failure in communication because certainly nobody in Brecon I've spoken to is supportive of it. Again, I have to mention Councillor Duff's previous nice to haves. The population, again, all that's been said, I can see what you've done for consultation, but there isn't much there. And a population of 21,000, it just seems a lot. There was a digital fly-through. I didn't actually see that. I didn't come across it online, but I believe there was only maybe 200 views in 18 months. That's not great. So, and I'm really sorry that Councillor Fairweather describes those those comments as nonsense, because do you know what? Everybody's opinion's important. So yeah, I'm really sorry that he's done that. And again, I'm sorry for Councillor Durno, but I can't support this. Thank you.
Councillor Dorn.
Thank you. I just wanted to come back on a couple of comments just to mention that I agree. I think that the change is needed. I think that's clear from the community. But my real concern is around that engagement that's taken place around the final designs of the project. And when we've got a response rate of less than 1% of the population of Arbroath on those final plans, I feel that's a real worry. And that information needs to guide us all as councillors to make decisions on what we do next. And we really need to have that information on major planning projects to understand the impact or what people might see as the impact that will take place in those areas. So I wanted to make that comment that I think there is change needed. I completely agree we need change relating to climate change. I think that's obvious to all of us, but I have a real concern about the engagement that's been done on this project and the information that we've got here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Doran. Councillor Beattie.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. I would like to go back to some stuff that Councillor Fairweather said. If we abandon this project, and it's in the papers, if we abandon this project, we might never see that kind of funding again, okay? Now, I'd like to remind everybody that there's a sustrans element to the levelling up fund bid that we are trying to get through for Brecon and the north of Angus. If we cannot put that, we cannot jeopardise that bid by removing this from us. It's just far too important to the future of Brecon and the north of Angus, especially now.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beattie. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I did note that a couple of members I think 2.5 years ago. I think Councillor Speed articulated it quite well that this project had a rocky start, and it took quite a lot of time for members to see the benefits of the scheme. And yeah, I admit I've changed my mind in it. I know a number of my colleagues have as well. And I think that's because we now better understand the scheme. It is clearly going to make Arbroath a much more attractive place. And I think Councillor Gall has articulated very well the value of tourism to the Scottish and Angus economy. And I'm very reassured by the statement at the beginning of the meeting by the Leader of the Council that we have identified £10 million from reserves and contingencies, which any prudent council has, to deal with the effects of the storm Babet. We're obviously anticipating and very hopeful of getting support from Scottish Government, but we've got a down payment there, if you like, and I'm very comfortable with that. So yeah, I'm very happy to support the project for all the good reasons that we've heard from elected members today.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Right, we have recommendations 1 to 7 in front of you. Is this agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to number 4, review of curbside recycling service, and again, Councillor Graham, sorry, not Councillor, my apologies, Mr Graham Day will introduce this report.
Thank you, Provost. This report details proposals for a revised curbside recycling service that would align with national policy, deliver savings identified in the Council's change plan, increase recycling, and would be supported by approximately £2.8 million of grant funding from the Scottish Government's Recycling Improvement Fund. It's highlighted to members that the change plan agreed by Council in March of this year included a £400,000 saving from the review of the curbside recycling service, and as detailed in this report, the proposed changes are forecasted to deliver this saving. This is only made possible by the offer of almost £3 million of funding from the Scottish Government's fund that will cover the capital outlays required to introduce the changes. As highlighted in the report, it is forecasted that the proposed revisions will also lead to an increase in our recycling rate. Our system of collecting our recycling commingled in a single bin is non-compliant with the Scottish Government's Charter and Code of Practice for Household Recycling. The recent Circular Economy Bill paves the way for compliance to the Charter to become future. Therefore, if we do not revise our service now, we run the significant risk that we will become legally obliged to change our service in the future, but may not have the offer of almost £3 million of external funding at that time. As we are one of the very few councils collecting our recycling commingled with glass, we see less suppliers bidding to process and sort our collected recycling. I would advise members that if we continued with the current system, there would be the very significant risk that our costs will further escalate due to the lack of suppliers and market competition. It is fully recognised that no longer collecting glass at the curbside, but in the curbside bin, may be seen as a negative and an added inconvenience. However, as evidenced by the options appraisal carried out and detailed in Appendix 1, we have very carefully considered this matter. Continuing to collect glass commingled would be non-compliant with the National Charter, as already referenced, and it was made clear that we would not receive the funding offer if glass was collected in a commingled recycling bin. The option of an additional household box or bin to collect glass separately was considered, but concluded as too expensive. We are proposing to significantly increase the number of glass recycling points in Angus from 23 to almost 200. This will make it easier and more convenient to access a recycling point for our residents. Our neighbouring councils apply a similar method for glass recycling, and feedback and data from them demonstrates that the method can be effective. The report highlights that around 50% of what we collect in non-recyclable purple household bins could have been recycled, and sending this to our waste-to-energy plant rather than recycling costs us over £1 million per year. Added to this, our recycling rate has stagnated in recent years, A new procedure for tagging and not emptying household bins containing an unacceptable level of recyclables is therefore also proposed. This is a bold step, but would help sustain Angus as one of the top performing recyclers in Scotland. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much for that. Now, at this point in time, I have to determine if members have any questions or comments in relation to the exempt approved appendix. Does anyone have any questions of the exempt approved appendix? Is that to do with that, Councillor Fairweather?
No, Provost, I had my hand up at the very beginning to give notice of an amendment.
Oh, that's good. I'll deal with the protocol first. So no one's asking any questions of number 6, the exempt approved report. So we don't therefore need to go on to 5 or 6, which is asking the public and press to leave. See your hand, Councillor Fairweather. You have an amendment.
Yes, thank you. Sarah, I believe Sarah Forsyth has got the amendment to circulate.
Okay, and do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do.
Who's that? All right.
I would prefer not to.
We'll put the report out first. We've got that. Thank you very much, and we'll now take a 5-minute recess so that everyone gets a chance to read your amendment, Councillor Fairweather. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Could we stop the recording, please?